Homelessness. It's a crisis that often stays hidden in the shadows, yet it's a reality for thousands of people across Canada. From coast to coast, the issue isn't just confined to large urban centers, but is growing even in smaller cities. In today's video, we're counting down the top 10 Canadian cities with the highest homelessness crisis, shedding light on the numbers, causes, and the ongoing efforts being made to combat this growing issue. Stay tuned. Before we dive into the list, did you know that over 235,000 people experience homelessness in Canada every year? That's equivalent to the entire population of a city like Richmond, British Columbia. What's even more shocking is that homelessness is on the rise in certain areas, and some cities have seen a dramatic increase in the number of people living without stable housing. It's a problem that affects everyone: families, veterans, young people, and even those who once lived comfortably. But which cities are being hit the hardest? And what's being done to help those in need? Let's find out. But first, if you're interested in learning more about social issues, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's get into it. Starting off with our number 10 city, Victoria, British Columbia. Victoria, the capital city of British Columbia, is known for its picturesque landscapes, temperate climate, and tourist attractions. However, beneath this idyllic image lies a growing homelessness problem. The city has an estimated homeless population of around 1,500, a significant number given its relatively small size compared to other major Canadian cities. Victoria's mild weather attracts individuals from other regions of Canada, particularly those seeking to escape the harsher winters of other provinces. This has created a situation where the demand for affordable housing and shelter services far exceeds supply. The city's rental market has also become increasingly unaffordable, with vacancy rates hovering around 1% in recent years, leaving many unable to find or afford stable housing. The causes of homelessness in Victoria are multifaceted. Rising housing costs, mental health issues, substance abuse, and a lack of sufficient social services have all contributed. Many of those experiencing homelessness in Victoria also face challenges with mental health and addiction, particularly as the opioid crisis continues to impact communities across Canada. Victoria has made strides in addressing homelessness, launching initiatives like the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness, which brings together local governments, nonprofits, and community groups in an effort to find solutions. However, the challenge remains daunting as shelters and affordable housing projects struggle to keep pace with the growing need. While the city is working to develop more long-term housing solutions and provide better access to mental health and addiction services, the problem persists, particularly in Victoria's downtown core and surrounding areas. Number 9. London, Ontario. London, Ontario may not immediately come to mind when thinking about homelessness in Canada, but this mid-sized city has been grappling with a growing crisis. With over 1,900 people experiencing homelessness in recent years, London's struggle has become more apparent. A combination of factors, including a lack of affordable housing, rising rent prices, and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, have exacerbated the issue. London's shelters and emergency services are often stretched to their limits. The city declared homelessness a state of emergency in 2020 after recognizing the severity of the situation. Many residents in London are unable to find stable housing due to the skyrocketing cost of rent, which have increased dramatically in the past decade. As housing becomes more scarce, more people are forced into precarious living situations, including couch surfing, staying in shelters, or living on the streets. The city has been working on multiple fronts to address the crisis. In recent years, the City of London has focused on creating more supportive housing and increasing access to mental health and addiction services. Programs like London Care's Homeless Response Services aim to provide outreach and support to those experiencing homelessness. However, these efforts are often met with limitations in funding, and the demand continues to outpace available resources. London's homelessness crisis is a stark reminder that this issue is not exclusive to Canada's largest cities. As affordable housing becomes increasingly difficult to find in smaller urban centers like London, the need for comprehensive solutions becomes more urgent. Number 8. Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa, Canada's capital city, is often associated with political power and national decision-making, but it is also home to a growing homelessness crisis. With over 2,000 people experiencing homelessness in the city, Ottawa faces a unique set of challenges, particularly given its status as a hub for refugees, veterans, and families. A significant portion of Ottawa's homeless population is made up of veterans, many of whom have struggled with mental health issues such as PTSD. Additionally, as Canada welcomes more refugees, many new arrivals face difficulties finding affordable housing in a city where rents have steadily increased. Ottawa's housing market has become particularly competitive, with vacancy rates remaining low and housing prices rising significantly in recent years. The city also faces a challenge of cold winters, which make homelessness particularly dangerous. During the harsh winter months, emergency shelters often reach full capacity, and the city is forced to open temporary shelters to accommodate the increased demand. The situation is further complicated by the lack of affordable rental units, which pushes more people into homelessness. Ottawa has taken steps to address this crisis, including the creation of the Housing First program, which focuses on providing permanent housing to individuals before addressing other challenges, such as mental health or substance abuse. Additionally, the city has expanded its emergency shelter system and is working on increasing the availability of affordable housing units. However, the scale of the problem requires continued investment and innovative solutions to keep up with the growing need. Number 7. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatoon, the largest city in Saskatchewan, is known for its vibrant cultural scene, picturesque riverfront, and growing economy. However, in recent years, the city has also become known for its growing homelessness crisis. Saskatoon's homeless population has more than doubled over the past decade, with estimates suggesting that over 2,500 people are currently experiencing homelessness. This number is significant for a city with a population of just over 300,000, highlighting the severity of the issue. One of the key drivers of homelessness in Saskatoon is the lack of affordable housing. Like many cities across Canada, Saskatoon has seen a sharp rise in housing prices and rent costs in recent years. While the city's economy has grown, the benefits of that growth have not been evenly distributed, and many residents have found themselves unable to keep up with the rising cost of living. The vacancy rate in Saskatoon's rental market has dropped dramatically, and affordable housing options are becoming increasingly scarce. Saskatoon's cold winters also play a significant role in the homelessness crisis. With temperatures often dropping well below freezing during the winter months, homelessness can be particularly dangerous in Saskatoon. Shelters in the city are frequently at capacity during the winter, and there is a constant need for more emergency shelter spaces. Unfortunately, the demand for shelter beds often outpaces supply, leaving many individuals to seek refuge in makeshift encampments or unsafe situations. Indigenous peoples are disproportionately affected by homelessness in Saskatoon. Indigenous people make up a significant portion of the city's homeless population, a reflection of the broader systemic issues affecting Indigenous communities across Canada. Colonization, intergenerational trauma, and systemic discrimination have left many Indigenous individuals without access to stable housing, adequate health care, or employment opportunities. The overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the homeless population highlights the need for culturally appropriate services and housing solutions that address the unique challenges faced by Indigenous communities. Saskatoon has implemented several initiatives to address homelessness, but progress has been slow. The city's Housing First strategy focuses on providing stable housing for individuals before addressing other issues such as mental health, addiction, or employment. This approach has shown success in reducing homelessness in other cities, but Saskatoon has struggled to keep up with the growing demand for housing and support services. Additionally, the city's emergency shelters are often overwhelmed, particularly during the winter months. In response to the growing crisis, Saskatoon's local government and nonprofit organizations have been working to expand shelter services, increase affordable housing options, and provide more support for individuals dealing with mental health and addiction issues. The city has also partnered with Indigenous organizations to develop culturally appropriate housing solutions and services. One example is the Saskatoon Housing Initiative's partnership SHIP, which works to create affordable housing projects and provide support to individuals experiencing homelessness. Despite these efforts, the homelessness crisis in Saskatoon continues to grow. The city's shelters are frequently at capacity, and many individuals are left without access to stable housing or support services. The COVID-19 pandemic further complicated the situation, as social distancing measures reduced the number of available shelter beds and increased the need for temporary housing solutions. In conclusion, Saskatoon's homelessness crisis is driven by a combination of factors, including a lack of affordable housing, the city's harsh winters, and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the homeless population. While the city has made efforts to address the issue through initiatives like the Housing First strategy and partnerships with Indigenous organizations, significant challenges remain. More investment in affordable housing, shelter services, and mental health and addiction support will be needed to make a meaningful impact on the crisis. Number 6. Quebec City, Quebec. Quebec City, with its rich history, stunning architecture, and vibrant cultural scene, is one of Canada's most iconic cities. However, like many other urban centers across the country, Quebec City has been grappling with a growing homelessness crisis. With an estimated 2,800 people experiencing homelessness, the city has seen a sharp increase in the number of unhoused individuals in recent years, particularly as housing affordability has become an increasingly pressing issue. One of the most significant factors contributing to Quebec City's homelessness crisis is the lack of affordable housing. Quebec City has experienced a boom in real estate prices over the past decade, with housing costs rising faster than incomes for many residents. The city's rental vacancy rate has dropped to below 2%, making it difficult for low-income individuals and families to find affordable housing. This shortage of affordable housing has pushed many people into precarious living situations, including couch surfing, staying in emergency shelters, or living on the streets. Another contributing factor to the homelessness crisis in Quebec City is the ongoing mental health and addiction issues that many individuals face. Like many other cities across Canada, Quebec City has been affected by the opioid crisis, with an increasing number of people struggling with addiction to drugs like fentanyl. Many of these individuals find themselves without stable housing, as addiction and mental health issues often lead to job loss, strained relationships, and an inability to maintain stable housing. Unfortunately, Quebec City's mental health and addiction services have struggled to keep pace with the growing demand, leaving many individuals without the support they need to get back on their feet. Furthermore, Quebec City's cold winters make homelessness particularly dangerous. With temperatures often dropping well below freezing in the winter months, those without shelter are at risk of frostbite, hypothermia, and other cold-related illnesses. Emergency shelters in the city are often filled to capacity during the winter, and there is a constant need for more shelter spaces, particularly for individuals who are unable or unwilling to stay in traditional shelters due to mental health or addiction issues. In response to the growing crisis, Quebec City has implemented several initiatives aimed at addressing homelessness. The city has embraced the Housing First approach, which prioritizes providing individuals with stable housing before addressing other issues such as mental health, addiction, or employment. This approach has shown success in reducing homelessness in other cities, and Quebec City has made efforts to increase the availability of affordable housing units through partnerships with nonprofit organizations and developers. Additionally, community organizations in Quebec City have been working to provide more support for individuals experiencing homelessness. Organizations like L'Aubervière and Maison de L'Aubervière offer emergency shelter services, meals, and mental health support to those in need. These organizations play a critical role in providing immediate relief to individuals experiencing homelessness, particularly during the harsh winter months. Number 5. Calgary, Alberta. Calgary, Alberta, is a city known for its booming economy, oil industry, and spectacular natural surroundings. However, behind its image of prosperity lies a homelessness crisis that has been steadily growing for years. With an estimated 3,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night, Calgary faces significant challenges in addressing the issue, which has been exacerbated by economic fluctuations, housing affordability issues, and the opioid crisis. One of the primary drivers of homelessness in Calgary is the lack of affordable housing. While Calgary has traditionally been one of Canada's most affordable large cities, the rapid growth of the city's population and economy particularly during the oil boom years, has led to a sharp increase in housing prices. As the city's housing market became more competitive, many low-income residents found themselves unable to keep up with rising rents. The economic downturn following the oil price crash in 2014 left many Calgarians without jobs, and for some, this loss of income led to housing instability and eventual homelessness. Calgary's economy, which is heavily reliant on the oil and gas industry, has been subject to extreme fluctuations over the past decade. The boom and bust cycles of the oil industry have led to periods of rapid economic growth, followed by sharp declines in employment. During the downturns, many individuals who had previously been employed in the oil industry found themselves without work and unable to afford housing. This economic volatility has contributed to the growing homelessness crisis in the city. The opioid crisis has also had a significant impact on Calgary's homeless population. Like many other cities across Canada, Calgary has seen a sharp increase in opioid-related overdoses, particularly involving fentanyl. Many individuals experiencing homelessness in Calgary are also struggling with addiction, and the city's services for mental health and addiction treatment have often been stretched to their limits. Harm reduction programs, such as supervised consumption sites, have been established in the city, but critics argue that more needs to be done to address the root causes of addiction and provide long-term support for those in need. Calgary's cold winters add another layer of difficulty to the homelessness crisis. With temperatures often dropping well below freezing, the winter months can be life-threatening for those without shelter. Emergency shelters in the city are frequently at capacity during the winter, and there is a constant need for more shelter spaces. The city has established warming centers and temporary shelters during the coldest months, but these are often seen as short-term solutions to a long-term problem. In response to the growing crisis, Calgary has implemented several initiatives aimed at addressing homelessness. The Calgary Homeless Foundation, established in 1998, has been a key player in coordinating efforts to reduce homelessness in the city. The foundation works with various nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and community groups to provide housing and support services to individuals experiencing homelessness. One of the foundation's key strategies is the Housing First approach, which focuses on providing individuals with stable housing before addressing other issues, such as mental health, addiction, or employment. Calgary has also made efforts to increase the availability of affordable housing through partnerships with developers and nonprofit organizations. The city has implemented policies to encourage the construction of affordable housing units, but the demand for affordable housing continues to outpace supply. In conclusion, Calgary's homelessness crisis is driven by a combination of factors, including a lack of affordable housing, economic volatility, and the opioid crisis. While the city has made efforts to address the issue through initiatives like the Housing First approach and partnerships with nonprofit organizations, significant challenges remain. More investment in affordable housing, shelter services, and mental health and addiction support will be needed to make a meaningful impact on the crisis. Number 4. Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton, Alberta, like its southern counterpart Calgary, has been grappling with a growing homelessness crisis. The city, home to over 1 million residents, has an estimated homeless population of around 3,500. The homelessness issue in Edmonton is rooted in a combination of factors, including a lack of affordable housing, economic downturns, and the ongoing opioid crisis. One of the primary contributors to Edmonton's homelessness crisis is the city's economic volatility. As a city relying on the oil and gas industry, Edmonton has experienced the ups and downs of fluctuating oil prices. The oil price crash in 2014 resulted in widespread job losses, and many individuals who previously had stable employment found themselves unable to afford housing. Although the economy has diversified in recent years, the impact of the downturn left a lasting mark on the city, particularly on individuals and families who are already living paycheck to paycheck. The rising cost of housing has also exacerbated the homelessness issue in Edmonton. While Edmonton was once considered one of Canada's more affordable cities, housing prices and rents have increased significantly in recent years. The city's rental vacancy rates have plummeted, making it increasingly difficult for low-income individuals to find affordable housing. Many people have been pushed into precarious living situations, including couch surfing, living in shelters, or setting up encampments in public spaces. Edmonton's homelessness crisis is further complicated by the opioid epidemic, which has ravaged communities across Canada. The city has seen a sharp increase in opioid-related overdoses, particularly involving fentanyl. Many individuals experiencing homelessness in Edmonton also struggle with addiction, and the city's services for mental health and addiction treatment have been overwhelmed by the growing demand. While harm reduction programs, such as supervised consumption sites, have been established in the city, they are not enough to address the root causes of addiction and homelessness. The cold winters in Edmonton also pose a serious threat to those experiencing homelessness. With temperatures often dropping below -30 degrees Celsius, winter can be life-threatening for those without adequate shelter. Emergency shelters in the city are often at full capacity during the colder months, and the city has had to open temporary shelters and warming centers to accommodate the increased demand. In response to the growing crisis, Edmonton has implemented several initiatives to combat homelessness. The city adopted the Housing First model, which prioritizes getting individuals into permanent housing before addressing other challenges, such as mental health or addiction. The Edmonton Homeless Commission and Homeward Trust Edmonton have been leading efforts to provide affordable housing and support services for the city's homeless population. Despite these efforts, Edmonton's homelessness crisis continues to grow, and more investment in affordable housing, addiction treatment, and mental health services is needed to make a lasting impact. Without addressing the root causes of homelessness, including economic instability and the opioid epidemic, the city will continue to struggle with this pressing issue. Number 3. Montreal, Quebec. Montreal, Quebec's largest city, is a vibrant cultural hub known for its rich history, diverse population, and thriving art scene. However, beneath the city's lively surface lies a growing homelessness crisis. With an estimated 4,000 people experiencing homelessness, Montreal has seen a significant rise in the number of unhoused individuals, driven by a shortage of affordable housing, mental health challenges, and the ongoing opioid epidemic. One of the primary factors contributing to Montreal's homelessness crisis is the lack of affordable housing. While Montreal was once considered one of Canada's more affordable large cities, housing prices and rents have surged in recent years. The city's rental vacancy rate has dropped below 2%, making it increasingly difficult for low-income individuals and families to find adequate housing. The gentrification of certain neighborhoods has also exacerbated the problem, pushing long-time residents out of their homes and into precarious living situations. As housing becomes more scarce and expensive, more people are forced into shelters, encampments, or the streets. Montreal's homeless population is diverse, including families, youth, Indigenous people, and immigrants. In particular, Indigenous people are overrepresented in Montreal's homeless population, a reflection of the systemic inequalities and discrimination they face in housing, employment, and healthcare. Many individuals experiencing homelessness in Montreal also struggle with mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia. Unfortunately, the city's mental health services are often stretched thin, leaving many without the support they need to maintain stable housing. The opioid epidemic has also contributed to the rise in homelessness in Montreal. In recent years, the city has seen a sharp increase in opioid-related overdoses, particularly involving fentanyl. Many individuals experiencing homelessness in Montreal also struggle with addiction, and while harm reduction programs like supervised injection sites have been established, they are not enough to address the deeper issues of addiction and homelessness. Montreal's cold winters also add another layer of difficulty, as the city's emergency shelters often reach capacity during the colder months, leaving many without adequate protection from the elements. In response to the growing crisis, Montreal has adopted the Housing First model, which prioritizes getting individuals into stable housing before addressing other issues like mental health or addiction. The city has also worked to increase the availability of affordable housing through partnerships with nonprofit organizations and developers. Community organizations like the Old Brewery Mission and Maison du Père provide shelter, meals, and support services to those experiencing homelessness, playing a critical role in addressing the crisis. Despite these efforts, Montreal's homelessness crisis continues to grow. More investment in affordable housing, mental health services, and addiction treatment is needed to make a lasting impact. Without addressing the root causes of homelessness, the city will continue to struggle with this pressing issue. Number 2, Vancouver, British Columbia. Vancouver, British Columbia, is often regarded as one of the most beautiful cities in the world, known for its stunning natural surroundings and high quality of life. However, Vancouver is also home to one of the largest homelessness crises in Canada. With an estimated 5,000 people experiencing homelessness, the city faces a complex and multifaceted problem, driven by skyrocketing housing costs, the opioid epidemic, and a lack of affordable housing options. The housing market in Vancouver is one of the most expensive in the world, with average home prices and rents far exceeding what most residents can afford. The city's rental vacancy rate is consistently below 1%, making it incredibly difficult for low-income individuals to secure stable housing. Many Vancouverites spend more than 50% of their income on rent, leaving them vulnerable to housing instability. This shortage of affordable housing has pushed thousands of individuals onto the streets or into temporary shelters, with little hope of finding permanent housing. The opioid crisis has hit Vancouver particularly hard, with the city's downtown East Side DTS neighborhood at the epicenter of the epidemic. The area, known for its high rates of poverty and addiction, has seen a devastating increase in opioid-related overdoses, particularly involving fentanyl. Many individuals experiencing homelessness in Vancouver also struggle with addiction, and while the city has implemented harm reduction programs like supervised injection sites, these initiatives have not been enough to stem the tide of overdoses and addiction-related homelessness. Number 1. Toronto, Ontario. Toronto, Canada's largest city, is home to a homelessness crisis on an unprecedented scale. With an estimated 8,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night, Toronto faces the most severe homelessness problem in the country. The city's homelessness crisis is driven by a lack of affordable housing, rising rent prices, and the ongoing effects of mental health issues and addiction. One of the most significant factors contributing to homelessness in Toronto is the city's skyrocketing housing costs. Toronto's real estate market has become one of the least affordable in North America, with average home prices and rents far outpacing the incomes of many residents. The city's rental vacancy rate is consistently below 1%, making it extremely difficult for low-income individuals and families to find affordable housing. As a result, thousands of people are forced into precarious living situations, including staying in shelters or living on the streets. Toronto's homelessness crisis is further complicated by the city's diverse population. The city is home to a large number of refugees and immigrants, many of whom struggle to find stable housing due to a lack of affordable options and barriers to employment. Additionally, Indigenous people are disproportionately affected by homelessness in Toronto, a reflection of the systemic inequalities and discrimination they face in housing, healthcare, and employment. Mental health issues and addiction also play a significant role in Toronto's homelessness crisis. Many individuals experiencing homelessness struggle with mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia. The opioid epidemic has also hit Toronto hard, with the city seeing a sharp increase in opioid-related overdoses in recent years. Unfortunately, the city's mental health and addiction services are often underfunded and unable to meet the growing demand, leaving many without the support they need to maintain stable housing. Toronto's cold winters add another layer of difficulty to the homelessness crisis. With temperatures often dropping below freezing, those without shelter are at risk of frostbite, hypothermia, and other cold-related illnesses. The city's emergency shelters are frequently at capacity during the winter months, and there is a constant need for more shelter spaces.